Joining us now is Carol and Stephen's daughter, Ellie, who was accused of her parents' murder, alongside the case's senior investigating officer, Detective Inspector Lydia George. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for coming on the show. Ellie, I'm going to start with you. We've watched the documentary. It's incredibly powerful. But right from the very beginning, you can tell what a lovely house you grew up in and how much you adored your parents. What were they like? The scenes of you dancing with your mum, and she was so full of life.
Yeah, she really was. She was a very bubbly, outgoing person, and she just loved to live. You know, they were both very strong, willful people, and yeah, it was just, they were lovely. They were really lovely.
So when did you first meet Luke, you and the rest of your family?
Yeah, we first met Luke. He was actually introduced by a friend.
Right.
Mum had her own business, and he was a IT whiz, and he actually was hired to help with the IT side of my mum's business. So that is how we initially met him.
So he became part of your parents' life and all of your lives. And then your mum's health deteriorated significantly, didn't she? She had a strange condition that really affected how she lived, didn't it?
Yeah, she had the condition anyway, but the understanding of it is as she got older, her going through hormonal changes then affected the condition. So that was kind of the understanding that he led us all to believe. So, yeah, and then it just went downhill from there.
And she got progressively more and more poorly. The condition seemed to really take a hold of her. And then she started communicating with a person called Dr. Andrea from the States. How did that happen?
So, once again, I mean, I obviously, too, was manipulated. So my understanding of that is that my mum had reached out to a doctor, and then a year or so later, she then got back in touch. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. Whether it was just an email and that's how that started, I'm not sure. But she was a doctor that specialises with thyroid issues, and yeah, it just became. It was a massive relief actually to have someone to be able to help us navigate this condition.
And this doctor was offering guidance all the way through on what your mum should be doing, how she should be moving. Like, literally, it was governing every part of her life in the hope that it was going to sort of help her with the condition, the thyroid condition that she was struggling with.
Yeah, it was everything, you know, how much rest she got, what types of food she would eat, how much sugar she would consume, her social interactions, just absolutely everything.
And her condition progressed really quickly, didn't it? Like, what was she like, your mum, in the later stages when your dad, Stephen, was taking care of her?
So it was about a good year and a half, 2 years of her slowly getting worse and worse. And by the end of it, I mean, she was out of it. She couldn't speak, she couldn't communicate properly. She was very uncomfortable. She was itchy. She was in quite a lot of pain. You know, and she was just absolutely stripped of her life.
And she was really desperate, and so was your dad too.
Yeah, I think we all were. We had no idea how to help her get better, and it was really sad to, you know, to see someone you love deteriorate like that.
And it got to the point where, Ellie, on the 9th of April 2023, you went round to your parents' house. You hadn't been in touch with them. You hadn't been able to get in touch with them for a couple of days. You're getting a little bit worried. What happened that day when you got to the house?
Well, I actually went round the day before, and you know, I was there most days, and my dad said he wanted a bit of a break, and you know, I've got a young family, so I said, of course, you know, and I drove past the house, and everything just looked normal. The blinds were down, and by the next morning, I still hadn't heard from them. I drove past the house again, and the blinds were still down, and my dad would methodically get up and do that. He'd do that rituously. And that is when I knew something was wrong. And I got out the car, went round the back of the house, and, yeah, I saw Mum and Dad both there. It was very obvious to me that they had passed. The skin discoloration, and it was, you know, it was really, really horrible, and the house was locked. I couldn't get in. So we ended up smashing our way in. Yeah, it was very traumatic, to be honest.
In the documentary, it's such a striking moment, Ellie, because we can, on the CCTV footage, you can hear you screaming, trying to get to them, trying to wake them up.
Yeah.
And you keep saying she's done something really stupid. What was your concern?
Well, at that point with her illness, she was getting very confused. I mean, at one point she was ironing my dad's shirt on top of the stove and, you know, things like that. She'd put bleach, you know, in a cup of tea and, you know, she was just, all the signals in her brain were just getting completely mixed up. So my first thought was like, oh, my gosh, she's cooked something and they've ingested something and, you know, I really thought that it was a mistake that she'd done.
And then you were actually one of the suspects. In the initial kind of investigation, you were a suspect and so was Luke.
Yeah, no, that is right. That was certainly another interesting day.
And then when you took over, what was your kind of thinking?
So I came in on the bank holiday Monday. I was on call and I read the incident over the weekend and nothing about it seemed right. Two people don't die like that together.
No.
So there had to be a reason why they died, which was my job to find out and to find the truth. So following the post-mortem at the scene, there was, as I said, there was no signs of forced entry, obvious signs of suicide, and their bodies were unremarkable. It was quite a long wait to get the toxicology back, 12 weeks. And then when that came back, there was a fatal dose of fentanyl in Stephen Baxter's blood and a fatal dose of fentanyl in Carol's blood, and also a double fatal dose of promethazine in Carol's blood. So at that time, that was the obvious cause of death and why they died, but it was then trying to find out how and why. How
it had been administered, who had actually done it, was it an accident that had been performed, as Ellie thought maybe her mum had done something because she, in her confused state. So as the senior investigating officer, you're trying to coordinate all of this and get into the evidence of what might have happened. It was at this stage, Ellie, I think you discovered a letter, didn't you? Because at the time, this Dr. Andrea was still controlling things. This Dr. Andrea, who had been governing and guiding your mum's life for such a long time, had just sort of such a pervading sense of control over all of you in a way.
Yeah, so I actually found the letter, and actually it's only recently I've realised I was actually manipulated even into finding the letter, because there was another fake persona named Jenny that I was in very close contact with, and I had told her that my parents had passed away, and she said, right, well, this is what you need to do. My husband's parents, like when his dad died, you know, this is what we've done. You need to go through and get a bank account number for all of the banks. You need to go through and get all this and that. And it was in the banking folder that I had found this fake will. So even that decision, it actually did stem from Luke himself again, you know.
So it took you 3 months to get all the blood work back, and then you started going through all the technological side, the tech side of Luke's kind of phones, his computers. What did you start to find?
So I don't know how he had time to sleep. We'd seize like 18 phones, numerous laptops, and going through all the digital evidence was just a task initially. Before we had the toxicology, we had Dr. Andrea Bowden and these different people, the solicitor of the will, and we were trying to get in contact with them. And I guess where we were emailing him and trying to get in contact, you know, we were obviously contacting Luke, not knowing it was him, and he wasn't replying. It was only until sort of a bit later on, as we were going through stuff, that the sort of penny dropped, and we realised that actually he posed as many different personas, and there was so much sort of that was intrinsic to each bit of the investigation. It took a really large team to try and understand, you know, all the lies, manipulation. As Ellie said, you know, she was just as much of a victim as her parents.
Must have been absolutely extraordinary, though, Ellie, and amongst all of this, that you were one of the suspects as well. Until Lydia and the team could finally start unpicking what it was that Luke had been doing, to have that glare of suspicion on you when you'd been so devoted to your parents must have been horrendous.
Yeah, I was about 7 months pregnant when I got the knock at the door. And it just, you know, it was, hang on, like, you know, I'm being arrested for one. And then it was, you know, when they said, you know, you're being arrested on suspicion for the murder of Carol and Stephen Baxter, I just, I mean, where'd you even go? And it took a few minutes. It was like, hang on, wait, murder? That means they have been murdered? And then it was just slowly piecing it all together. And I think when I found Mum and Dad, I've never felt an emotional pain physically hurt so much, and it really, really affected me. I was early pregnant with my daughter, and it really did, you know, hurt my body, and I think I just went into that protection mode, and I just needed to not let myself get too hysterical.
And one of the most painful things I was reading in the paper today, that you've had to move away from the area you live because that cast of suspicion is still on you. One of the things that's most important about the documentary, because lots of people respected this Luke DeWitt within in the area. People liked him. They knew he wasn't. They're still suspicious that it was you and not him.
Yeah, even still, I mean, you know, if I go into the shop, you know, people do look away and, you know, all that type of thing. And now I just kind of want everything ruled out. It's always the people that are saying that are still suspicious that did not go to the trial and didn't attend and, you know, and won't listen to the facts. And, I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, you know. No. So we shall see.
It's an extraordinary case, Lydia. Did we ever, or do you think you ever got to the bottom of why he did it?
In all honesty, only he knows why he's done it. You know, initially we thought it was a financial motive, which it wasn't.
Because the fake will was just useless. I mean, it was your child could have written it.
Absolutely. You know, it was, as Ellie said, it was. I just think it was a sadistic pleasure, control, manipulation. You know, I don't know how long he'd pre-planned this. Like I said, only he will know. But it was a long campaign against them.
Well, look, I hope it brings you some closure, Ellie, particularly with those people that still are suspicious of exactly what happened. Because the first episode of Essex Millionaires Murder airs tonight on 9 o'clock on ITV1 and is on ITVX now as well. It's an extraordinary, extraordinary two-part documentary. Thank you for sharing the story.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload new content every day, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and we'll see you in the morning.